Welcome to Wichita Liberty TV with Bob Weeks.
Hello, I'm Bob Weeks for Wichita Liberty TV, your weekly source for news, analysis, and commentary about Wichita, Kansas government and public policy. We're broadcast on KGPT channel 26.1, also its companion website, kgpt26.com. Some of you may know me for my blog, The Voice for Liberty, at wichitaliberty.org. The motto there is individual liberty, limited government, and free markets in Wichita and Kansas. I cover things that may not be covered by other news media in Wichita and Kansas, or if we do cover the same news, I'll do it from the perspective of economic freedom, limited government, and individual liberty, because these are the things that are important, and these are the things that are so often under attack by our government, be it at the federal, state, and local level. So, please visit wichitaliberty.org. You can subscribe to the email newsletter I send, and if you want to contact me, you'll find my email address there, or just remember bob.weeks@gmail.com. Public service announcements on Facebook and Wichita City Channel 7 urge Wichitans to take steps to stop vampire power waste. But before hectoring people to introduce inconvenience to their own lives in order to save small amounts of electricity, the city should tackle the real monsters of its own creation. Now, people are probably usually aware that many modern electrical and electronic devices consume electricity even when switched off. One source estimates that a cell phone charger consumes 0.26 watts of electrical power even when a phone is not plugged into it. While in sleep mode, a flat panel computer display consumes about 1.39 watts, a clock radio uses 2.01 watts, and a microwave oven, while not in use and with its door closed, uses about 3 watts. These are average values, and my large Samsung smart television, I found out, uses 0.3 watts while on standby. Now, while appearing to be wasteful, this vampire power consumption often has a benefit. If you unplug your clock radio when you leave for work in the morning, well, you save a few dozen watts of power during the day. But you have to reset the clock when you want to use it again. And if I unplug my Samsung smart television, I'll probably have to reprogram it to my preferences. And if I want to save the power my microwave oven wastes, I'll have to wrench my back lifting it out of the way so that I can reach the outlet it plugs into. And that, of course, unleashes a cloud of dust bunnies to dirty my counters and floor. But nevertheless, the City of Wichita uses its Facebook page and cable television network to urge its citizens to take steps like these in order to save very small amounts of electricity. Well, how much electricity do you suppose a city streetlight consumes? Well, it depends on the type of light, but common streetlights use from 100 to 200 watts. And during the hours when the sun does not shine, we're generally willing to pay for that in order to obtain the benefits of lighted streets and sidewalks. But when street lights are burning in the middle of the day, they provide absolutely no value. Street lights turned on during the day provide none of the convenience of vampire power usage, such as not needing to reset your clocks and move your microwave oven every day. So while the City of Wichita uses its television channel to hector citizens into adding inconvenience to their lives in order to save vanishingly small amounts of electricity, the city apparently has no misgivings about using large amounts of electricity to needlessly illuminate the noonday sky week after week. As we've seen before on Wichita Liberty TV, the city often has street lights turned on at noon on days with no clouds in the sky. Last week, dozens of city lights were turned on at 2:30 in the afternoon on a sunny day for many blocks in downtown Wichita. And this is not an isolated mistake, it is a pattern. And even if it is cloudy and raining as it is on some days, these street lights add no discernible illumination during daylight hours. And there's something else. Each of us can choose the balance between vampire power waste and inconvenience based on our own values. If we choose to use vampire power in order to add convenience to our lives, well, we have to pay for that, and it's a choice we have made for ourselves. But the Wichita City Hall bureaucrats who burn streetlights in the noonday sun are spending your money, not their own. Yes, I know, City Hall bureaucrats do pay taxes to the city just like you and I, so their tax money is also wasted. But because the cost of this waste is spread over the entire city, the motivation for any one person to take steps to eliminate the waste is small. Especially if, like a City Hall bureaucrat would, you'd have to actually work in order to achieve savings. But these same bureaucrats and politicians urge you to work harder in your home in order to save small amounts of vampire electricity. Now, the wasteful expenditures on streetlights I've been illustrating for several weeks are located in districts of the city represented by Janet Miller and LaVonna Williams. Both express concern for the environment and criticize the purported harm man has caused the earth by the emission of greenhouse gases. Well, here's an opportunity for them to act on their beliefs. Wasting taxpayer money needlessly lighting the cloudless sky with streetlights is bad, no doubt about it. But what is even worse is the city's attitude. The idiom, "do as I say, not as I do," comes to mind, meaning, take my advice, you people in Wichita, even though I in my office in City Hall am acting contrary to it. As a City Hall bureaucrat, I am simply too busy to be bothered with making sure streetlights are turned off during the day. But you had better remember to unplug your clock radio each day as you leave for work. Otherwise, you are contributing to Wichita's air quality problems. Welcome back to Wichita Liberty TV. I'm Bob Weeks. In the last segment, I showed you the attitude of Wichita City Hall towards its subjects. Attitudes like this are not exclusively to Wichita city government. Unfortunately, this attitude is common. But in Wichita, it can be even worse. Recently, the proceedings of a Wichita City Council meeting provided instruction of the factors that citizens like you need to consider if they want to interact with the council and city government at a public hearing. Well, at the June 17th meeting of the Wichita City Council, an agenda item was a public hearing to consider adding a property to the city's facade improvement program. Susan Estes of Americans for Prosperity Kansas appeared before the council during the hearing to express concern that a member of AFP had made a request for information on the item but had not received the information by the time of the public hearing. Well, that AFP member who made the request was me. Now, before we look at what happened at the City Council meeting, here's a bit of background. Wichita's facade improvement program provides for the financing or repair of the exterior faces of buildings in certain areas of the city. Money is advanced to building owners to pay for the facade repairs. The same amount, along with interest charges, is added to the property tax bills for the property spread over 15 years. In this respect, the program is similar to when the city builds streets and sewers in new parts of town and allows homeowners to pay these costs over 15 years. These are the special taxes that many of you and me may be paying. Except, the facade improvement program is for the repair of existing buildings, not construction of new infrastructure. Additionally, the work financed by the facade improvement program is owned by the private property owner. When the city constructs streets and sewers in new neighborhoods, well, the city owns them. That's an important difference. If a property owner sells the building that has benefited from the facade improvement program, the benefits of the program transfer to the new owner. And there is yet another difference. For this property owner, the facade improvement program contains a grant of $20,000. This is a gift of cash with few strings attached, except that it be spent on something the owner was going to spend money on anyway. Well, there is one other thing, too. The city requires a gap analysis in order for a property to participate in the facade improvement program. This means, according to city documents, that applicants show a financial need for public assistance in order to complete the project. And for this project, city documents state that the gap analysis concluded that there is a financial need for incentives. Now, the gap analysis did not appear in the council agenda packet, so I asked for it, and I had not received it by the time of the city council meeting. I had also not been told that I could not receive it or that I would receive it at some later time. And since I was not able to attend the council meeting on June 17, Susan Estes of AFP inquired, as part of the public hearing, about the gap analysis. And here are some video clips of what happened at that meeting.
Councilman Meitzner.
Ms. Estes, so this agenda item was discussed at length last week, and it was on for the second public opinion this week. And you're saying that you made a request for information and we didn't give you information?
Not I personally, but Mr. Weeks did, and he asked for the gap analysis, and we've received no response. And sometimes we have to kind of wait until things are released on the agenda packet, because a lot of times that's when information that we might be looking for is released, or very often we're told, well, here's when this is, the agenda packet releases when things become public and out of their draft form.
So when this was first brought up last week, anybody could ask for information then, but we waited until the agenda was published Thursday afternoon, which I agree there could be some flaws there, but
absolutely, again, because very often we're told that things are in their draft form and not open to the public until that time. And then sometimes what we want is in there. So we try to balance not bugging what we anticipate getting.
So in this video, you saw from the bench City Council member Pete Meitzner. He represents District 2, that's East Wichita. He said that this item had been discussed in length last week, referring to what would be the June 10th meeting. Well, a reading of council agendas and minutes shows that it was actually at the June 3rd meeting when the item was presented. Further, the June 3rd matter was a different item. It's a small detail, but the purpose of the June 3 item was to approve and accept the property owner's petition and set the date for a public hearing, that public hearing being held on June 17th. Now, I don't like to be critical of people for making mistakes while speaking if the mistakes are inconsequential. Mistakes are easy to make, especially when speaking extemporaneously. It's also too easy to make mistakes when reading prepared material. But in this case, dates of meetings and what happened at those meetings are the basis of Councilmember Meitzner's criticisms. Furthermore, the mistake was compounded. Councilmember Janet Miller, later in the meeting, repeated Meitzner's advice to citizens.
I would point out that this is the reason that we have these items on multiple agendas, is to give people opportunity to ask in time. So right after the agenda was published, not for this week, but the prior week, that request could have been made then. So I would like to acknowledge that that's one of the reasons we established the setting of a public hearing in advance, is so that can be requested, and in this case could have been requested a week earlier. Presumably we would have been able then to have this issue resolved.
Well, since 2 city council members made an issue of it, let's be precise. At the June 3rd meeting, contrary to Meitzner's assertion, there was no substantive discussion on this item except for the presentation by city staff. And there really was no need for discussion at that time, as the purpose of the agenda item on June 3rd was to accept the petition and set the date for a public hearing. If the petition is valid in its form, I don't believe the council has any choice but to accept it and set a date for a public hearing. The purpose of the public hearing, naturally, is to hear from the public. Okay, well, back to the June 17th meeting during the public hearing. Meitzner questioned Estes and city staff. He asked if there was a gap analysis performed on all special assessments the city establishes. When told no, he asked why is the gap analysis needed for this project and not for others. Well, the assistant city manager explained that it is required for economic development projects like the one under consideration today, but not for others.
So this was a facade easement. It's a special assessment. It's going to be paid by special assessments, right?
Okay.
That way I understand. we have various development areas that we have special assessments for roads and streets and whatever else. Is there gap analysis done on every time we do a special assessment item? Do we know? There's not. Is there a reason why this one should have a gap analysis and not the other ones?
Councilman Remeitzner, I'd like to clarify that. For economic development projects, a gap analysis is done. For regular special assessment projects, for public streets, no, that's not a regular part of our process.
Okay. All right.
Questioning at the meeting also revealed that there are legal issues regarding whether the gap analysis document can be made available to the public. And surprising to me is that I have received the gap analysis document. I'm not sure that I understand its meaning, and I'm consulting with experts in the real estate industry now to determine whether the analysis is valid. Now, I said I'm surprised that I received this document, as Councilmember Janet Miller noted that the Kansas Open Records Act might contain a provision that would let the city withhold this document from the public.
Okay. Councilman Miller?
Yes, may I ask for further clarification from Mr. Dorff? Is the legal question whether or not a gap analysis is public information, or is the legal question about whether or not there's a problem with the way the gap analysis was conducted?
It has to do with whether or not the gap analysis is a document that is subject to the Open Records Act.
Well, if you followed myself and the Kansas Policy Institute as we try to obtain information from the City of Wichita and other governmental agencies, you can understand why I'm pessimistic about receiving the information I ask for. Following, however, is perhaps the most troubling portion of this meeting. If you ask for information from the City of Wichita, and if you don't also ask for similar information from other cities and states, that may be used to discredit you.
Member Meitzner?
Just another question for you, Susan. So when the other communities, Derby, everybody else is doing a similar thing where they have a facade improvement, has there been requests, and do they provide gap analysis to you? Or have you ever requested one from anybody else?
We have not asked. I've not had members in those areas interested in that.
Asked on all the action that Topeka does? Have you asked for gap analysis on any of those?
Topeka's not in my territory.
Your knowledge, does your group ask from Topeka?
I couldn't give you a accurate answer on that. I would be speculating.
Same. I guess you're saying the same thing about all the economic development that Kansas City does, the Kansas City area, in their border wars. Is there any requests for gap analysis information on those?
Again, I could not begin to answer that because I don't have the knowledge.
Be able to find out if your group
I'd be happy to.
Ever asked for other areas outside of Wichita?
Yes.
Okay. Fair enough.
No other questions.
Thank you.
Now, Susan Estes is not your average citizen. She is an accomplished grassroots activist. She works for Americans for Prosperity, a national organization, and she appeared before the council at the meeting to advocate on my behalf, not hers, although I'm sure she supports what I was doing when I asked the city for information, and I'm grateful for that support. And further, I am not your average citizen. I've been following Wichita city government for about 10 years and have spoken to the council many times on many issues. I have placed myself in the public arena. It's my choice to do this. But what about the average citizen of Wichita who is not experienced and who does not have a national organization to rely on for support? What are they to think of this meeting? What are their expectations if they decide to speak out
You're watching Wichita Liberty TV.
And this is not the first time things like this have happened. And by the way, the meeting also featured an impassioned attack made by a citizen speaker. He attacked Susan Estes, Americans for Prosperity, and their allies like me. Well, it turns out that attack was based on incorrect information, as was explained to the citizen later on in the meeting. But that attack was from a misinformed and uninformed citizen. That wasn't the city's fault. Well, in the end, the city deferred action on this item until a future meeting. And as I said, I have received the gap analysis, and I'm hopeful that I can consult with real estate experts before the item is again considered by the council. Okay, what can we learn from this meeting? Well, first, if you don't ask for information on a schedule that pleases the city council, you may be criticized by not just one, but by multiple council members. Second, council members and members of the public may criticize you based on incorrect facts. Third, council members may grill you based on their lack of knowledge of city policy. Or maybe they just don't understand city policy as well as you do, but criticize you nonetheless. And finally, if you ask for information from the City of Wichita, but don't also ask for the same or similar information from other jurisdictions, well, a city council member may seek to discredit you on that basis. So I wonder, is the city proud of its treatment of citizen activists? Mayor Coral Brewer and others have been discourteous to other speakers when they did not agree with what the council wanted to do. And last year, you may remember that I showed you this video on Wichita Liberty TV. The mayor threatened to bring a lawsuit against Susan Estes simply because she asked the mayor to follow the clear meaning of city statutes. Well, I have full video from this portion of the June 17 council meeting at the Voice for Liberty on the internet at wichitaliberty.org, or you can always find video of full council meetings at wichita.gov. And by the way, I know that people watch Wichita City Council meetings on television and online. It's not uncommon for people to approach me in public and tell me they've seen me on television. Some of that, of course, is from viewing this program, Wichita Liberty TV on channel 26.1. Some of it is from my appearances on Cake TV This Week in Kansas on Sunday mornings, but much of it is from appearances before the Wichita City Council. Well, that's Wichita Liberty TV this week. Thank you for watching. I'm Bob Weeks.